Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Good evening, everyone, ladies, gents. Welcome to the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk podcast, the show where we talk to people of color who are engineers, innovators, educators, inventors, and entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world of technology. This podcast is where they share their stories, experiences, ideas, knowledge, and perspective on tech with the Bit community. I am your host, Greg Greenlee, and it is episode number 98. It's July 7th. 2017, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, you can check us out at the following URLs. We're at www.blacksandtechnology.net. We are also on Twitter at Black and Technology, and that's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. We're also on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Blacks and Technology. And we have an ever-growing LinkedIn group under Blacks in Technology, so just do a search on Blacks in Technology, you'll find us. And if you're on the Twitters, you're listening in, you have questions for our guests, tweet them to us using the hashtag BitTechTalk, BITTECHTALK. Blacks in Technology, we're a tech-focused community and media organization. We're focused on increasing technology and increasing diversity in technology through increased visibility and participation of people of color in tech. We always focus on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist our members with their continued professional growth and development. If you'd like to partner with us, send us an email to contact us at blacksandtechnology.net. All general inquiries and inquiries related to sponsorship, send those to contact us at blacksandtechnology.net. Let's go through a few announcements before we get started. Let me see. First announcement. We've partnered with DevOps Day Chicago for their annual DevOps Tech Conference happening August 30 and 31st at the Summit West in downtown Chicago. We are giving away some free tickets to that, so if you're interested, do a search on our site for DevOps Day Chicago. There should be a form on the blog post there where you can fill out. There's probably also a code where you can get a discount off the tickets as well. DevOps Days Minneapolis, that's coming up pretty soon, July 20th and 21st, and that's happening at downtown Minneapolis Hilton. And we're community partners with them as well. We also are giving away a few free tickets to that. So check our site for DevOps Days Minneapolis. There's a form there. If you're interested in attending, fill out that form and we'll get you tickets. What else is happening? Oh, yeah, I definitely want to speak about Springboard Initiative. So we are community partners for the Springboard Initiative. They're an organization that provides technical and leadership training to African American youth. They'll be kicking off their pilot program August 15th, 2016, with 20 African Americans participating in a 9-month training program with technical training facilitated by the Community College of San Francisco and a leadership and professional development conducted by the Bayview YMCA. They are looking for mentors for this program, so if you're interested in mentoring young talent, email them at info@springboardinitiative.com. That's info@springboardinitiative.com. And so tonight our topic, our guest, I should say, is Makinde Adeagbo. That's correct, right? Did I do pretty well?
You got it. You got it.
He is the founder
Very well.
of DevColor, an organization that focuses on people of color or software engineers. He's a former engineer and manager at some of the top tech companies in Silicon Valley, such as Pinterest, Dropbox, and Facebook. So I'm definitely happy to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I've heard a lot of the episodes in the past, so glad to be part of the project.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for the support. Thanks for listening in. Yeah, so let's jump into to questions here. Give us, for people who may not know you, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what your education is.
Yeah, definitely. So I was originally born in Nigeria, but left when I was 2. Bounced around a little bit through the South, through Canada, and in elementary school landed in Louisville, Kentucky. So that's where I grew up, elementary, middle, and high school. I was really into sort of, I'd say, engineering and math-related things from a pretty early age. So that's the stuff that I focused on sort of growing up through high school, and then went to college at MIT, studied computer science. I'd say when I got there, I knew that I wanted to do some sort of engineering, which is the case for most people there, but sort of took the first 2 or 3 semesters to actually narrow things down into computer science, sort of weeding out mechanical engineering and some other stuff.
Interesting. So you're our first guest that has come from MIT. So I mean, what was the experience like as a person of color at MIT?
Oh, interesting. So the thing that actually stands out to me the most, well, so I'll first say MIT is hard. I think it kicks a lot of people's butts, kicks almost
Right.
everyone's butt, regardless of your ethnicity or background. So
Right.
that is by far the determining factor for my experience at MIT. But then MIT also does this really cool thing, well, cool in my opinion,
Hmm.
which is they let people choose where they live on campus, which seems like a small distinction and that it wouldn't really matter.
Right.
What that creates at MIT is really strong communities, clusters of, 50 rooms or a staircase or a hallway of people from similar backgrounds. So actually a lot of the Black and Latino students ended up living in, one half of one dorm, and I was lucky enough to live there, which
Interesting.
is cool for, a lot of reasons. You get to hang out with people similar background to you. But the real sort of defining part about that was that I grew up being in classes without any other Black or Latino people. Um,
Right.
so I'd grown up with this sort of notion inherent around me that there aren't a lot of, really smart, really talented Black and Latino kids. But now here I was at MIT, one of the top schools, surrounded by other people who look like me and were just as smart, if not much smarter. So that was just actually a really cool experience to get to redefine my own notion of what it meant to be, smart and sort of a geek and into technology as, an underrepresented minority in the field. That, hey, this is not the exception, that this is normal. Like, there are,
Right.
smart Black people, and there are people crushing it. It was just great to be able to live in that environment and have that sort of replace all my previous notions.
I think that's very interesting that you brought that up because as you know, running a community of black software engineers and me running the blacks in technology community, one of the things that we knowingly or unknowingly try to do is change perceptions, right? And that's not just from the outside. I think the outside is I guess more of a byproduct of us wanting to change how we view each other, right? So your experience with being one of a few, if not the only black person in a lot of your classes or tech coming up, um, you had this notion that you were the only one or you were one of a few and that there weren't many. But once I feel that once we uh, um, start increasing the number of people within our community. Once this thing we're doing with building these communities start really getting out there, we start changing perceptions of people within our community. So people within our community are not under that same notion that there are not any black people that are in tech, or there are not any super smart black people or quote unquote geeks out there in our community. So I think that's a very motivating thing for me anyhow, is that I that's what I try to do every day, is I try to feature more people of color in in tech. I really try to push these people to the forefront, whether or not they're engineers or entrepreneurs, wherever they lie at in tech. Those are the people that need to be seen. And if we don't do it, within our community, then we leave it up to somebody else to kind of tell our story. And I for one don't want to do that. I'd rather us be in charge of that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true, and it's not. I mean, honestly, it's not something that I even going through it. I wasn't consciously, thinking about like, oh, I need to change my perception at the time. It was only afterwards that I realized how valuable that was. So you're right. It's something that, sort of every stage of growing up, every stage of your career, it's something that's good to be reminded of is explicitly shaping that perception for yourself and for others around you.
Definitely, definitely. So going back a little bit, how did you initially get into technology? I know everyone has their story. With me, my mom's boyfriend was actually into electronics, and he kind of he would always take me to work with him. He worked as like a video technician at a local community college where he did a lot of video work, but he also did a lot of electronic stuff. He used to build stuff all the time. So that was kind of my initial exposure to tech, and then it kind of went from there. What was your initial exposure?
Yeah, I'd mention sort of two things in my formative years. One was just sort of things like logo writer and things like that. I think I probably started doing that in middle school. If you haven't heard of it, it's like you have this like turtle on the screen, and you can type in commands to say like move up, 10 spaces, move to the right 10 spaces, put a pen down, and then move again, and you can draw on the screen. And that was my first time sort of experiencing the computer as something that I could control and sort of get to produce things and be part of the experience of creating something. But then other than that, my dad, I think, brought home a computer from work that he was able to bring sometime in middle school as well. And the number of times that I think it had Windows 3.1 on it, so it booted into DOS, and you had to type in like the Windows command, and I just like kept breaking it, like, oh no, I somehow deleted this critical system file. It's like, okay, get out the stack of like 30 floppy disks that the operating system came on, and I got really good at reinstalling everything before he got home from work. So I was always just sort of like trying to poke around this thing, trying to figure out how it worked, trying to figure out like what I could do and what I couldn't do with it. Yeah, that was certainly the start of things.
Interesting. So going back to your MIT days, what was what's a good way to put this? How did you all was there a support system? I know that you all kind of you all stayed in the same dorm, but what was the experience like as far as like a support system? So for instance, maybe you're struggling in a class, or you're struggling with a certain topic or subject. Did you all have a support system where you're like, hey, let's get together and kind of knock this out, or how did that whole thing go?
Oh, amongst students?
Yeah. Well, amongst minority students there. Was there any like special groups?
Right. So there are two things. There were a few special groups. The Office of Minority Education sort of provided, I think, some ongoing programs to help people find tutors and things like that. Right. I never directly participated in those. I knew a lot of people who did. But for me, the biggest help was just the people around me. So at MIT, basically everyone in their freshman year is effectively taking the same classes. So just everyone around you is going through the same stuff, and they deeply encourage people to help one another. So everybody's working together through that. And then as I sort of got older and more experienced, about a quarter to a third of MIT is then computer science. So there are always people in my dorm who were, working on the same themes as me, taking the same classes. There's absolutely, we had I'd call it an informal support system where it was just all clear that, a lot of us were going to do the same classes at the same time. We were going to work on group projects together. So that was just like sort of built in and baked in. So, when I lived in that dorm that had mostly black and brown kids, like that's also who I was doing most of my homework with. And in most of my classes, I was on teams with them. So it sort of, it wasn't just living together, but it was studying together, working together, being excited about awesome grades together, being sad about bad grades together.
Interesting. Yeah,
what's the full experience was with those people.
Yeah, I got you. It's always interesting. I have a friend out in Austin, and we were chatting one day online, and he was just telling me like it's not always. For instance, we attend a lot of different tech conferences, and of course we're always underrepresented at tech conferences. We may be one of a few or a handful of people of color at a tech conference. And we were just talking about that experience, and it was he made a statement that it's not the a thing of just other black people just being there, but it's that common bond, those common experiences that you can share, because we can go toe to toe with anyone in tech, right? We can talk tech all day with anybody at any of these conferences, but it's not that. It's some of the similar backgrounds that we share, some of the similar experiences that we share, and having those type of bonds, it makes things a lot. It makes the experience of attending a conference a lot more rich, I think, right? And sure, you can find other people of different ethnicities that may have some things in common with you, but there's just something a little bit different of having a person of color there. So maybe you're talking about, hip hop or some obscure anything from that you might only find in like a black family or something like that. And it's just those type of bonds that make that experience that much greater. So I can see how you being in a dorm and you're being around other black and brown people, and how that whole that atmosphere could be a lot more enriching than not having that.
Absolutely, yeah. At a conference, in class, at work, anywhere. I think I would venture to say it's just sort of a fact of life that people tend to be more comfortable around other people like themselves, who have shared some of those backgrounds. And even if you don't end up talking about those specific things related to your race or gender or whatever it is, just knowing that you're in that environment where you can be yourself, be comfortable, that's valuable. Allows you to let your guard down, be totally relaxed.
Right.
And the way I found it useful to explain this to people from the majority is, it's like, hey, imagine you came to an event and everyone in the room was black. Like, how would that feel? And most people would say, like, oh yeah, I've never been in that situation. I wouldn't be sure how to act. It's like, well, that's my experience every day. So, so I think a lot of people take it for granted that, like, hey, a lot of people here are like me. I don't need to worry about this. But when I'm in a room and there are no other black people there, there's a small but always there process in the back of my mind that is, should I say this? Should I talk about this? That when I'm in a room or a community of just black people or people like myself, that filter's not there. And I get to just completely be myself without worrying about, if I talk about this part of my life, will that confuse these people or will that upset them?
Right. I definitely agree. And not to bring up a somber mood or anything like that, but it's similar to. I've been seeing a lot of posts on Twitter, and our condolences to the two young brothers whose life got who were murdered by police officers, Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. There was um, a lot of posts on Facebook, a lot of posts on Twitter, just about that, for instance, that conversation, and being in environments where you're hurting, and you're in anguish, and you're grieving, and you can't reach out to anybody around you, right? Because either they're disconnected from the whole situation, or you don't want to start that conversation that leads into something that escalates into something else, for instance, right? And so,
Right. Right.
and so I totally understand. It's like today at work. It's like, I really want to say something about this to somebody, but there's nobody around. And I definitely don't want to talk to my coworkers about it, and just it's you don't want their reaction, because they may not be empathetic to it.
Right.
And
And you're in a tough spot, right? And
right.
the last thing you want is to have to watch your words. You're going through something, and you want to be able to just let that out. And not every environment is a great place for that.
Right.
I mean, yeah, definitely my condolences to the family. It's important that we have places to talk about and grieve, talk
Right.
about these things, to grieve on these issues that uniquely affect us, and we will see this through a unique lens that others won't. I mean, I say that as right now. I mean, one of our member actually created a Slack channel this morning to talk about it, because they felt like they were at work and they couldn't focus, and they couldn't talk to anyone there about it. And our members have been discussing it all day
Right.
on Slack.
Right. Right. Same here. Same here. Our we have a event channel in our Slack group, where we pretty much discuss any and everything that has to do with just about anything from tech to social issues that are going on, and we definitely discussed it a little bit, but it's just nice. And that's what's great about communities like Deaf Color, and communities like Blacks in Technology, and any other communities that are similar, is that we're giving people these spaces where it might not all be about tech, but it gives us that atmosphere to where we're comfortable enough to talk about issues that affect us uniquely every day. So yeah, moving on, shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
So you worked at some of the top tech companies, such as Dropbox, Pinterest, Facebook, as a manager and as an engineer. So can you give us a little bit of insight on being hired at each one? Just talk a little bit about your position, and kind of how the application process was like. What was the interview process like? How did you prepare for these interviews? Those type of things.
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing I'll do is I will separate that process. So you mentioned 3 of the companies I worked at.
Right.
I will separate the processes that I went through for Facebook, which was my first job out of school. And that is a completely different world than every other subsequent job that I've gotten.
Okay.
So I think your original question is about Facebook, and I'll end up describing both. But my senior year of college, I applied for basically every company I could find under the sun. If I was on your website and you had a jobs link on there, you were getting my resume. And I think actually when I flew out to interview at Facebook, I stayed in the Bay Area for about 9 days and interviewed at 8 companies in that time.
Wow.
So I was doing lots of interviews. If you asked how I prepped for it, so that's how Facebook came about. I submitted my resume through the jobs link. They were small enough at the time that I think they were still looking at that. I think as companies get bigger and they get thousands of resumes in, it's harder to get in through that channel. But they were about, I think when I applied, about 150 employees, submitted my resume via the jobs link. And I prepped for those interviews. I don't think I ever actually saw any of these books, Cracking the Code interview, or anything like that. I prepped in what may be a non-traditional way, which is I did lots of other interviews. So throughout college, as I was trying to do internships and things like that, there was a distinct pattern that repeated itself over and over again. I would start doing interviews in interview season. The first 2 or 3 jobs, I would do horribly in the interviews, and then I would get better and sort of hit my stride. This includes, I think as a testament to this, my first internship was at Microsoft. I got back to campus the next year. I'd done really well at that internship. I did another on-campus interview, and it was my first one, and I did not get an offer to come back. Even though I had done well in the 12-week interview beforehand, I was just out of practice. I had not interviewed in a year.
Wow.
So that was the thing. And that's part of why I interviewed at so many companies, because I knew even if I only somewhat wanted to work there and wanted to learn more, that practice of being in a real interview would be so valuable. So by the time I interviewed at Facebook, I'd probably done at least 20 real job interviews in the months before.
Wow.
And that's still advice that I give to people, is to not start with the company you really want to work for.
Interesting.
Or not start with your top choice, because if you're out of practice, then that will likely be your worst interview, that first one that you do.
Interesting. That's it's the first time I actually heard that type of advice. Kind of. If you're looking for, if there's a particular company that you really want to work at, interview at a bunch of other companies before that, but that's pretty good advice. What's funny is that that actually is kind of how I end up working at the company that I wanted to work at here in Cincinnati. Is I went on a bunch of interviews that I was like, yeah, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. I kind of had that mentality. I'm not saying have that mentality, but it was more practice because I was actually going from help desk work to systems administrative systems engineering work, and I had never done that type of work before outside of doing stuff in my lab at home. So it was good experience to see the type of questions that you get asked, and the way the interview is kind of organized before you actually get to the actual job that you really want. Like, hey, I really want this job. It has all these things that I really want to do. So yeah, definitely good advice.
Yeah, no, you'll know more about the process. You'll be more relaxed because you've done more before. Maybe you have an offer or 2 under your belt already, and then you can walk into that last interview with some swag.
Right. So what do you think was kind of like the determining factor in you being hired?
I think this was the case back then, and interviews have changed somewhat. I mean, that was I'm getting up there now, 9 years ago. But I think they're still largely the same, which is a lot of the tech interviews are going to put you in front of a problem that you have not seen before, and they're evaluating how well you can sort of adapt on the fly and try to figure it out. Which, there are a lot of downsides about, a 1-hour interview. They present you a problem, you're on the spot, you're pressured. But I think that there are a lot of similarities between sort of that high level concept of the interview, which is here's a new problem, use the tools you have to figure it out, and what you do day to day as an engineer. So I think I'd done a little bit of PHP, which is what Facebook used, but
Gotcha.
I think I was able to show that, hey, I'm really good at if you give me a new problem, I can evaluate the 10 techniques I know, figure out which 2 to apply, and apply them correctly. And I think, especially hiring people out of school, that's one of the biggest things they were looking for.
Interesting. So, once you got
and
hired,
I should say,
go ahead.
Go for it.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish.
I was going to say the other process for Pinterest and Dropbox and every other company that I think I'll want to work at in the future is based not completely on who you know, but that's how I got connected with both of those companies. That's how I got like, okay, we'll absolutely interview you. So I think, especially in a place like Silicon Valley, it's so small and people move around company to company. If you're applying to another company and someone there knows you, of course you're going to get an interview. You still need to do well, but it helps a lot just when you're going somewhere where you have a connection or an in already.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. I mean, networking is that. I mean, it's a huge part, and I'll always like to stress that too. I've spoke at a number of different venues where students who are looking to get into technology, and I try to stress going to meetups and attending conferences, kind of as being it's just as important to me from a career progress wise, and just from a networking perspective, and that's kind of where the increase in participation, comes from. And when we talk about people of color in tech, is we want to increase the visibility of people of color in tech, but we also want to increase their participation. So we want these people to get out to these conferences, these meetups, and not just so there'll be more black people there, of course that, but there's an aspect of it from a career progression standpoint and just from a networking standpoint that's invaluable. You meet different people, you talk to different people, and those type of interactions can lead to your next job. So
absolutely. And a lot of times you can sort of go out of your way to try to make those connections. If you find yourself in a tech hub, what happens is, if you work at Dropbox, in 5 years, half of those people at Dropbox will be at every other tech company in the area.
Right.
So it almost starts to come naturally in an area where people are moving around so much that just by working and doing a good job, you will establish that reputation, which will, lead the way for you in many other roles that you do.
Excellent. And so, and you went from from being an engineer to being a manager. How did you kind of make that climb?
Yeah, I make the switch. A lot of it was building up leadership skills along the way. Being a manager in a fast-growing tech company is very different. It requires a completely different skill set than being an individual contributor, as we say out here, which is someone who is writing code all day, full time. So yeah, I think it was trying to find larger and larger projects. So that's a lot of times the tech companies out here will set up their ladder of seniority based on sort of the level of challenge that you can take on by yourself and be trusted with. So when you start out of school, the level of challenge they expect you to be able to tackle is, here's a small bug, here's a small feature that needs to be done. You can type all the code yourself, you can test it, you can get it done. And then as you work your way up, it's, hey, you can be trusted with this chunk of a larger feature, and you can sort of talk to different people about it and get that done. And then, hey, you're responsible for this whole large feature, and you're going to need to coordinate the team to get it done. Maybe the next step up is, hey, not only are you responsible for the feature today, but you're responsible for the feature today, tomorrow, and 6 months from now, and you need to figure out where it's going. So you just keep taking on these larger and larger scopes. Um, what I found is each time I transitioned to a larger scope, it was terrifying. I felt like I had no idea on earth what I was doing. um, and one of the challenges for me was that, I enjoyed writing code so much that I would be drawn to, sort of going back to like, well, if I just put my headphones on and just, do this myself,
Right.
I can get a lot done, which it took me a while to sort of break out of that thinking and just accept that, hey, working together on a team, we can all get a lot more work done, even if I personally don't feel like, I had that many tangible outputs.
Interesting.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, so it's, the transition to management and leadership is,
Right.
I think some parts come naturally, some parts are like, I have to learn the lesson over and over and over again.
Great. Great. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that experience. I think that could be helpful for a lot of people who are listening in and wondering like, hey, how do I, I'm been an engineer or I've been at this level for a while. How do I go into management? Um, so yeah, very
Yeah,
cool,
and
very
it's
cool.
tough because I think and it's not every level that, the job completely changes.
Mhm.
But the trap that I was stuck in for a while was, let's say I'm a level 4. It's like if I work really hard, maybe I'll, become a level 5 by working harder using the techniques that I know and in the way that I know how to do my job. And I think every few levels, sort of the game just changes where it's like, look, you're not gonna advance and not gonna take on things of a larger scope by
Right.
putting more time into the way you're doing things now. You need to sort of rethink how you're approaching it and realize, hey, I'm not going to do everything myself. I need a team to do it. Oh, actually, I'm not going to do all that stuff with just the team. I need a team of teams to come together and do this. And if each of the steps is just a different way of thinking.
Definitely. That's excellent advice. Excellent advice for people who are looking to make that next step. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
So let's get into Dev Color, your organization, um, and tell the people a little bit about what it is, why you started it, and why your work is so important.
Yeah, so I started Div Color almost exactly a year ago today. And I started it because I noticed that while, black software engineers in Silicon Valley are about 1%
Hmm.
of the engineering community out here, that 1% adds up to be a lot. We're just spread super thin. And as I talked to my friends and got to know more people, what I saw is that oftentimes we lack the connections, the knowledge about career paths and how to progress up, a feeling of community and belonging here. There, there are a few of these traits that we lacked that we could actually provide for one another. So the genesis of DevColor was to build a community where we can provide one another that support, that feeling of community, share connections with one another, and share experiences, right? There are people in the community who are ahead of me that I need to learn from in some ways. At the same time, I have experiences that can help a bunch of other people. So we wanted to create a community where people could do that as much as possible, where they could easily help one another and get help from others.
You can't see me right now, but I'm smiling ear to ear. And and that's because that's what, of course, we share similar visions and missions, and that's exactly the same reason why Bit was started, as those very same reasons, wanting to build a community around shared experiences, being able to engage with each other, help each other learn, help each other grow, and make these type of connections that we normally would not probably experience um, with each other within our community, because we are so spread out. And uh, it's funny because when 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 I first started Box Technology, it was kind of just this. out of it was just a passion of mine to want to do something like this. But at the time, uh, I had no idea that there was, this many black people that were in technology. I was thinking, get 150 people, 100 to 150 people on a site, and I'll be happy because that's all I thought there was probably out there. And it's grown, and I love to see other communities like your own join in this I guess this larger mission of what we're really trying to accomplish out here, and that's increasing diversity in technology, but building this community to be a resource for people within our community, right? I always tell people, when explaining blacks in technology, like, hey, it's the community aspect of it to me is the biggest resource that we offer. There's we have partnerships with different organizations where we give out free passes, conference passes, and we have training and things like that we can offer. But the biggest reason is our biggest resource is our community. We have thousands of people that are part of our community that can help you out, whatever stage of your career that you're in. We have people that have been there or have exceeded that stage that can help you, and that help, coming from your own is invaluable because now it's this trust thing that you have, right? It's this, these are,
Yep.
are people that look like me, talk like me, walk like me, and they're not going to steer me wrong. I trust them and trust their advice that they're giving me because I feel that they're looking out for my betterment. And so, I applaud you in creating another space that we can come to and congregate and engage and interact with each other.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true that people oftentimes ask, hey, is it only about why focus on black engineers helping other black engineers? Like, isn't the advice the same? And I say usually two things to that. One is oftentimes it's just a lot easier to ask for that advice and hear it and internalize it when it's coming from someone who looks like you.
Right.
So that's one advantage. But the other advantage is there's a whole range of topics that only black engineers are experiencing, right? What
Right.
it's like to, be a director of engineering and there be no one else of color at that level or above in your company, right?
Right.
Only a black senior engineer is going to be able to talk to you about that experience, right? So there's a lot that we get from just actually being together as a community. And, we absolutely want to welcome and are starting to do more and more things to get allies involved
Hmm.
who are from, who are not black software engineers.
Right.
But one of our primary themes is that level of comfort and community that we're building.
Definitely, definitely. And it's funny because I've had that same conversation um, before, and some of it more in a negative way, and I've give those talking points as well. But then it's kind of a thing where it's like, do you have a problem with black people helping each other? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, isn't that the very thing that a lot of people always kind of say? You need to build up your communities, and so when we go do it now there's a problem. So you don't want do you not want black people to excel in this industry? Is that what you're saying? Like, if we help each other, what's wrong with that, right? Um,
Right, right. That's totally true.
so on your site, you state that you're helping one another achieve ambitious career goals. Like, what type of mechanisms do you have in place to kind of to help people achieve that, help your community interact in that way?
Yeah, so we do a few different things, and that's all of our mechanics are aimed at sort of maximizing the opportunities for members to help one another. The primary one that we do is we put members in what we call squads. we had a little bit of a discussion early on about what to call. I think the formal title is peer exchange groups, but squads took over pretty pretty quickly.
Squad is
So
squad
these are groups of
is
6 to 10.
squad is kind of the new. Isn't that like the new hip term now? Squad goals, squad
Exactly,
up.
and I mean exactly. Once squad goals was uttered, it was a lock. Um, so these are groups of 6 to 10 members, and they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. Some are all senior members. They've been in the industry 20 plus years. They have kids. They're on similar schedules. Others are mixed in terms of seniority, where some members are 20 plus years of experience, and some members are still getting to their first year in industry. So these squads come together, meet every month, and talk about what's going on in their lives, what's going well in their careers, what's going well personally,
Hmm.
what challenges they're facing personally, and what challenges they're facing in their careers. And people get together, they share this, and then they also share relevant experiences that they've been through. So it might be like, hey, I'm a level 5. I've really been working hard the last 6 months to get promoted, and I didn't, and I'm not sure why. Has anyone else been through that? And that's actually where our commonality comes in handy, when someone else who looks like you and has been in your same situation can explain their story and what they learned from it, and what they tried and what worked, what didn't work. It's a lot easier to hear that and internalize that. And these squads are sort of our members. Our members love them. A lot of people are telling me that they are just they can't wait for the next squad meeting to come up.
Interesting.
That's the primary theme that we do is those squads. On top of
Hmm.
that, we have an online portal where members share goals, share where they're trying to go, and other members can see that and take that opportunity to help them and try to get there. And then we also have a monthly event where all of our members can come together, and we sit down with industry leaders. So we sat down with Mike Shrepford, who's Facebook's CTO, Marlene Santil, who works in the office of the CTO at Intuit, Hugh Malozzi, also from Intuit. So just lots of heavy hitters. Actually, Brett Taylor, who recently was appointed to the board of Twitter. Congrats, Brett, if you're listening. So we've been able to give our members access to a lot of prominent people who they tend to stay in touch with afterward, and reach out to when there are opportunities to get help or collaborate.
Very cool. So I'm going to throw a word out there. I don't know if you've ever heard this word, but this is exactly what you're doing. Is exactly what this the definition of this word is junto. Have you ever heard of that?
Junto, no, I haven't.
Okay, so and this is something that I've discussed with members of Blacks in Technology. Something that I actually wanted to start like a couple of years ago, and never really got around to it. But Benjamin Franklin used to do that very exact thing. With it was more of like a club. He called it the Junto Club, and I think they used to meet like every Friday, I would say, and they would pretty much discuss, you know, they would pretty much discuss, I guess, their week, any issues that they had during the week, and they would all come together collectively and talk about like maybe how they could solve that issue. So, for instance, they come together and they say, I had an issue with Farmer Brown, where his cattle was grazing on my land, and we kind of had a spat, and I don't know the best way to resolve this. And they would come together. It would probably be a little bit more complex than that. I'm just kind of simplifying it. But they would come together and they would
Yeah.
talk about these things. They would talk about laws and ways that they can help change and mold different laws to make them better for everyone. But I've always been intrigued by that, by the notion of having these juntos, these smaller groups where people can come and they can talk about you know different subjects, and just ways to progress, in in your life and in your career. So it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. So that's great.
Right, right. No, it's absolutely true. And what you find is, yeah, there's a lot of wisdom already in the group.
Right.
Um, sure, we want to bring out, we want to bring other people into to help and support, but when you're talking to your peers about how they deal with stress or work-life balance, or the challenge of getting promoted or the challenge of learning a new technology or leading a team for the first time, like
Hmm.
it's something where what you sure like advice from someone really far ahead of you is great, but there's almost a deeper level going on when you just hear that, hey, I'm not the only one struggling with this.
Right.
Um, and that's a lot of what people get. And it's we're still iterating on the website and trying to clarify that.
Right.
But a lot of times our members will say that to me. It's like, hey, I didn't know what I would get out of the squad, but now that I'm in it, I'm so happy that I am.
Excellent, excellent. And by the, I mean, I've been to the site quite a few times. I'm not a software engineer, um, but I've been there, and it's a beautiful looking site. And I definitely, and we'll talk a little bit about this towards the end of the podcast. But I definitely want to help promote what you're doing. I honestly don't think that we do enough of that. And when I say we, people who are leaders of communities like ours, and leaders in this movement, right? Kind of this crusade that we're on. Um, we don't do enough of supporting each other, and I think that's it's kind of a shame, and it's kind of, to me, it's kind of a crab in a barrel type of mentality where you offer whatever resources that you have to others, and they still, I don't know, it's kind of like they want to do it themselves. They want to be that person that makes that breakthrough, and it's like we don't have to do this alone in silos, and we shouldn't. We've all have different niches, or we all have different ways of going about trying to solve this bigger problem, and there's no reason why we shouldn't support each other however we can. So, I guess I'll
Right,
say it
right. No, and
now.
what else?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that. I mean, the fact of the matter, and I think what we oftentimes don't realize as a community, is that this is what everyone else is already doing.
Exactly.
Right? Like, we tend to be the ones sitting here trying to do it in isolation, trying to do it in a silo. But, it doesn't make sense. I remember even in school, and this thing I stress to a lot of people is I used to have this mentality, I know a lot of others do, where it's like you want to wait until you are 30 years in the industry, until you're VP of engineering in a company XY, and then I can reach back and help some folks. When I was in college, when I was a senior in college, I was already referring my friends who were freshmen to recruiters at companies, saying like, yo, this freshman's good. I've seen them do their homework. You should hire them. And they get the job. It's like
Right.
I was only a senior in college, right? It's like I didn't even have a full-time job yet. But I think we oftentimes just underestimate the power that we have
Right.
to help one another. So and that's like, again, like what we're all about. And we stress to our membership is we stress two things. It's like, A, you are here to get help, right? Like we want everyone here because you have somewhere you want to go in your career. It doesn't matter if you're already a director of engineering. It's like you could be VP of engineering. We want to know where your goals are, and we want you actively using the rest of the group to get there. And the second half is no matter who you are in the organization, there's someone you can help. There's someone who would benefit from hearing your experience.
Right.
There's someone who you could directly see their goal and say, like, I've done that before. Like, let me help you out. Those are the two big things we stress, and we're just trying to break down these barriers around people in our community helping one another. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. It's not a competition. Uh, I'm not in competition with another organization, right? We, for me, coming into this whole thing, th- it was it was always to help first. If anything comes after that, that's fine. And when I say anything, like if there's any monetary gain that there is to have with me having the Blacks in Technology organization, so be it. That's not what I'm shooting for. Um, even though I know it takes money to do certain things, I'm not shooting for that in a manner of, I'm trying to get rich. I'm trying to help, because um, I didn't have that support system coming up in my career, and so I want to see people benefit from having this type of support system now, whether or not they're 15, 20 years into their career, or they're just now beginning. I mean, that's what we should be doing. We should be helping one another. And I've being in the space that I'm in, I've come across a lot of organizations, and I've told them explicitly, I will help you. I will help promote whatever you're doing. It's not about me trying to be famous. It's not about any of that. I want to seriously see you do well, just as much as anybody else. So whatever I can do, if I can promote an event that you're doing, if I can promote your organization, let me know. Let's be partners in this. This doesn't even have to be something formal. Let's say we're partners, and let's work towards something bigger. It's bigger than us. It has to be. Otherwise, why are we doing this? So I extend that same thing to you as well. Not a lot of people take me up on it, and not to put you on the spot or anything like that, but there's not a lot of people that I've said that to that have actually taken me up on it and
Yeah, no,
use my
I
platform.
certainly appreciate it. Yeah, I definitely appreciate it, and we'll look for ways to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're totally in the same boat. Like I've said that to so many people, and it's oftentimes confusing or frustrating when they don't follow up or they don't take advantage. It's like, here's this opportunity, just go for it. What I found, surprisingly, being completely honest, is
Mhm.
while I say that I want to help people, and I'm confused as to why they don't respond, I'm also on the other side of that. When people more senior than me, even for things related to Dev Color, will be like, Makinde, I want to help. Tell me what I can do. Oftentimes I'm not sure. I'm apprehensive. Oh, is this too small or is this too big to ask? And what I found an effective way for me to sort of get over that hump,
Mhm.
and I also don't know. Oftentimes I have a problem. If I had the solution, it wouldn't be a problem anymore, right? So
Right.
sometimes I don't know what the solutions are to the problems I face. So what I've done is I just started being really open about the challenges that I'm facing personally and the challenges that the organization is facing. And I actually every month send a snapshot of that to a broad range of people, people who've offered help and support to us, some of the members, some of our advisors, people at Y Combinator. Every month the list grows of the people I send this out to, and every month without fail, some new person that I just added sees something on there and is like, I can help you with that. Or what happens even more times is I don't even know I have a problem, and when I describe it, someone will say, you have a problem with that, and I'm going to help you. So it's like I wouldn't even know to ask for help on some of the things, but just by
Mhm.
putting myself out there and being more open,
Right.
it creates opportunities for others to come in and help.
I'm definitely going to steal that. I think that's a great way.
Yeah, and people, it's like nobody's trying to knock you down, right? It's like,
Right.
people, the times I get the best feedback from updates is
Mhm.
when I admit that the most things are wrong. When I send an update out that like seems glowing, they're like,
Right.
this update was okay. You think A, B, and C are good. A, B, and C are about to fall apart. Here's some help. But when I'm just honest and I say A through M are in trouble, people will flood in to help.
Wow. Wow. That's super good advice. I'm definitely going to take heed to that and utilize that advice because there's definitely times and I'm the same way as you. There's times where I just don't know what to do, or I get a bunch of opportunities and I'm just like, I don't know how to take advantage of this. It sounds like a good opportunity, but what do I do with it, right? Um, and a lot of times, and
Right.
there I do have advisors that are on the bit staff that I confide in. But there are times when either I don't get an instant reply from them, or they're busy in their lives and they might not have time to reply. And so that's very good advice on how to kind of um, just put yourself out there, put your problems out there, and see who responds. Excellent, excellent.
Right. Right.
So what type of you talked a little bit
Absolutely.
about your events. What type of events does your organization organize?
Yeah, so we mix it up. So about two-thirds of our events are focused on career development. Typically, those are on an evening. In the evening, everyone comes together, eats dinner together for 60, 75 minutes, and then we bring in a guest who sits down and does sort of a very open Q&A session with the group. Our members actually tend to host those and sort of lead the fireside chat.
Okay.
Those have been great. Members really get a lot from connecting with one another, but sort of getting that open access to people. What I usually tell our guests, the best thing to do, especially if they're trying to sell their company or trying to hire folks,
Mhm.
is way better than standing in front and saying, come work at my company. Way better
Right.
is, hey, here's my personal email address. If you need help at any point in the future, hit me up. Um, and that openness and putting yourself out there and really connecting with members, that's what pays dividends. And then we are a community, and we are about helping one another reach our goals. But part of that is just being familiar with one another and knowing one another and connecting. So we host a social event about once a quarter. We actually just did one. We'll just, go to a bar, go to a park, get everybody together, and just hang out and chill. Even then, I'm still looking for connections to make between people, but
Right.
it's just a good time to relax and be laid back.
Excellent, excellent. And what's your ultimate goal for your organization?
Yeah, we want to make sure that every black software engineer is limited only by how much they want to work, how creative they are. We want to make sure that if they have a cool idea and it just needs a connection to a venture capitalist,
Right.
or they have the skills and they have the skills either to be a director or get into the industry, we want to make sure
Mhm.
they have the access that they need to get there. We want to make sure that whatever goals they have, they're equipped with everything they need to make those goals a reality. So we want to eventually be able to provide that for every black software engineer in the country.
Excellent, excellent. And what's next for you, and what's next for Dev Color?
Yeah, what's next for me is working hard. um, it's interesting. The dev color feedback cycle. People are meeting once a month, which is a lot longer turnaround time than software, where I can rebuild the code in 5 seconds if I want. So yeah,
Gotcha.
we're working away at this. We're building the team. Right now, it's two of us. By the end of the year, it'll likely be closer to four or five people.
Mhm.
We're looking right now. We're in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're looking at other cities, and by the end of the year, we'll have some activity in other cities. And I'll say a quick point on that. We have a lot of interest from a lot of people around the country. What we concretely want to do is make sure that we're building something of value, and
Right.
that takes time. So we don't want to, scale to every city around the country, add tons of members, but it's low quality all around. So
Right.
what we're doing is taking the time to, try things, measure them, and we try to iterate very quickly. Um, but we really want to nail it before going super broad. So to that end, we try to share through our blog, through our members participating in things like this, share the knowledge and expertise that our members have. You can actually tweet at our members with the hashtag AskDevColor. So we want to, in the meantime, provide access and let people get help from our member base.
Mhm.
But before we bring the full program, it'll take a little while.
And before we get out of here, how can people become members, and how can people contact and follow you and the organization?
Yeah, so the best way is to go to devcolor.org/signup, and then you can drop in your info, and when we get to your area, we'll shoot you an email, and generally check out devcolor.org. For getting to me, you can tweet at me at Makinde. Yeah, that's probably the best way. Just at Makinde, and I'm pretty responsive on there.
Okay. And also at devcolor.org for DevColor for the organization. So excellent.
Yes, at devcolor.org.
Yeah. So Makinde, I mean, it's been a pleasure. I'm definitely excited about what you're doing and where your organization is heading. And I want to reiterate this before we jump off of here. Anything you need, anything that we can do, if we can be a resource for anything, let us know. I'm always looking to help out and help other organizations that have similar visions and missions, such like BIT. So, if you're doing an event and you want to get the word out, if you're you're offering anything on your site that you want people to hear about, let me know. We've got almost we got over 570 members on Slack right now. A lot of software engineers. A lot of software engineers. We've got a nice little following on Twitter as well. We've got a newsletter that we put out. The blog site for BIT. So anything that we can do, just shoot me an email and let me know, and we'll make something happen.
Definitely. No, I really appreciate it, and I will absolutely, as things come up, I will certainly be reaching out to you.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun. Glad to share with the audience. Yeah, this was great. Looking forward to having more people involved.
Excellent. Well, take care, and you wish you much success, and wish DevColor much success as well. So, until we meet again, if I'm out in San Fran, I've been getting out there at least once a year ever since I went out there for, what did I go out there initially for? I can't remember. I think it was PuppetConf like a few years ago. And, that was after I thought, like, I'm never going to go out to the Bay Area. I'll always, be around this area or somewhere close. And then something came up, and I was out in San Francisco. So hopefully that happens again this year. So I'll definitely look you up, and we'll do lunch or do dinner or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Hit me up when you're here.
Okay. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Cool. Bye, Greg.
And that is it for this episode of the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk podcast. I definitely want to thank our guest, Makinde Adeagbo. He had a lot of great knowledge, a lot of wisdom dropping, and so I'm definitely thankful for him being on the show tonight and hearing about his great organization. If you like what you heard tonight, you want to let us know. If you have any suggestions or comments, email them to us at contact us at Blacks in Technology. And in a couple of weeks, that our next podcast is actually on the 4th. We may book somebody before that, but right now we don't have anybody for the next slot. So it looks like August 4th, we're going to have Marquette Burton of Fletch. He's going to be on the show. So join us in a month from now for that podcast. And we want to thank our listeners for listening in tonight. And remember, tech yourself before you wreck yourself. Take care. Have a good night.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology.